Welcome to Cinema 5D on the Couch, the talk show with filmmakers and industry leaders. Brought to you by G Technology, Rode Microphones, Movidium, Film Convert, and F&V.
Let's still stay with the gimbals for a little bit. I mean, Freefly just pioneered that scene, but there is a lot of innovation from other manufacturers coming. I think you mentioned something before.
Going back to the price drops, I think it's just price drops are very straightforward. In my humble opinion, it's the fact that the market is saturated. So when you saturate the market and there's more competition, obviously they just have to stay in the market to be competitive. Whether or not you can justify the cost is debatable, I think. Sometimes it's also aggressive for a company to say, well, okay, how much are we making the unit for and how much can we sell it for? It doesn't actually surprise me that they actually drop. To be honest, it doesn't surprise me that they drop the prices. I was just having a look at another gimbal system today by, I think, Motion 9 or something, and for under $3,000 you would have a gimbal system that falls into a suitcase, and sort of performs. But I mean, Dan and I were having a discussion about this, about whether certain gimbal systems feel more mechanical than others, or they flow better. So I guess it's all the little nuances and.
I think that's where Freefly still has the edge. It's just not enough of an edge to justify the $15,000 price tag versus the $8,000. So there's stuff going on there. The open source, not completely open source, the Alexmos gimbal system, which is the one used by the majority of RC enthusiasts and the cheaper gimbals that you see out there, is not standing still either. It was pretty average, and as people work on it and they improve the algorithms, and then different controllers come out with different circuit boards and different different degrees of accuracy, the cheaper ones will just get better. I mean, this is all field out of the Far East anyway, and actually Eastern Europe, so it's got very little to do with a lot of it. Don't think that any of these cheaper manufacturers are doing their own R&D. They're not. Not for software and circuit boards and actually even motors.
But so is everything else that's sourced out in OEM, right? So I mean, I think
the likes of Freefly are doing their own. They're doing their own thing. Yeah. I don't think that's.
But that gives them the edge, basically.
Yeah, and they do need to charge more, presumably, because it does cost. Yeah. The cost of having a development team versus the cost of downloading something from the internet that somebody else has been working on is. And this actually kind of goes to the argument that I have a lot of people online about firmware and software and everything. The idea that the only thing you pay for is physical hardware, I think, is just in this world very strange now.
A lot of people expect that kind of, and they don't see the R&D behind it. I mean,
so this gimbal looks like this. An M10 looks very much like a cheap Chinese gimbal that costs 1/3 of the price. Okay,
or less.
But and the only thing really that differentiates it is the programming and the software stuff. But you know what? That's the thing that actually makes it work better.
True.
Yeah.
That's the reason
why can't you charge X $1,000 for that if it means a difference between something that doesn't really work at all and something that is a
That's why I picked up the M10 last year at IBC. I tried all the other, I mean, not all of them, but like 4 or 5 other systems. They were just running after that after it was introduced at NAB, the M10. And some of that demo stuff of the competitors, you could even see that they used warp stabilizer on the demo footage. I mean, why would you? You're marketing a stabilizer. Yes. Why should it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But they are getting better.
The same argument can be applied to also, let's say, the implementation of certain things. So again, like whether it's a algorithm or whether it's software based. I mean, if you look at the general, and if I use the example, even codecs, for example, everyone can acquire ProRes. Right, but it's the implementation of ProRes that makes one product better than the other. So I think that's really interesting. So in this case, with gimbal systems, it's the implementation of the technology. Yeah, it applies to everything else.
I'm probably going to get a stream of hate comments now, but I mean, I just don't get this issue of I don't see why you can't charge for software. I mean, what differentiates an iPhone from like an Android phone is a little bit of his Joni Ive design, a little bit of his nice sort of tactile feel, and some of it is buying the latest electronic circuit board. But the biggest single part is the iOS, right? And really, I know they give you free updates, but you're actually paying. The premium is paid for that.
I've always said that the one thing that differentiates Apple, they know how to do interfaces.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Camera manufacturers could learn a thing or two.
Oh
from
yes,
that.
they should knock on Sony's door with in regards to menus and stuff like that. So Clinton, you mentioned before to me before the show that you were not really much of a gimbal user. You're still a Steadicam guy, right?
Oh well, yeah, probably going to get crucified for this as well. But yeah, I've never really gone into that whole thing. I look, I can see the benefits of it, but like Dan said, it's horses for courses again. I like to use that analogy because there are things you could do with a gimbal system that you simply can't do with a Steadicam rig, and I acknowledge that. But I think for me, I'm still trying to perfect the craft that is the Steadicam, which is more a mechanical process. So it really is based on a skill set or things that you would do on a Steadicam unit. So for me, I would get dynamic tracking shots on a Steadicam rig, and if I need to go for something else, I'd hire someone that is well versed in using a gimbal system. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not really a fan. I just don't feel it's something I would sort of delve into because there are other guys out there that specialize in it. Like again, I said, I'm still trying to perfect my craft when it comes to that sort of thing. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm never really sort of caught on to that whole craze of the gimbal system. So I'm probably going to get like a barrage of hate mails now as well.
Well,
I mean, have you been into it?
No, I use Steadicam more than I do gimbal.
The gimbal
in fairness.
yeah.
I think you can. It's a question of feeling. I think you can. It's. I have more pleasure. I'm not good at Steadicam, but when I used to practice a bit, it's the feeling is better than with a movie or movie like. You know, because the movies and gimbal, it's very heavy, and you have it on your arm like
you have
this.
to stick your arms on.
Yeah. And it's cool with easy rig or something like that, but I prefer to the feeling of the creating the picture and managing the movement with the Steadicam.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think again, it's about mature technology versus not mature technology.
Yeah.
A lot, even in 1 year since the launch of Movi, you've seen improvements in tactile feel for gimbals. There are gimbals with better tactile feeling. There are devices like the I don't know the guy the Flow Cine.
Klassen?
No, the Klassen Slingshot is another one. Yeah, the Flow Cine. There are devices out there designed to improve the tactile feel. At the moment, they all kind of involve sort of holes and things coming out the top. I mean, that's fine, but you know what? The viewer doesn't see that, so it doesn't really matter. But Steadicam has had much longer to evolve as a tactile device that an operator uses, and those operators all over the world have been inputting to the design of newer Steadicams for years now. So all the kinks in terms of operation have pretty much been worked out with Steadicam. So I don't actually think that one is intrinsically better than the other. It's just that one's been around much longer, and people have figured out pretty much everything. And I'm actually with Clinton. I do like using a Steadicam, especially for shots. A lot of what I do is just very simple stuff of a reporter or a presenter walking towards the camera, just going blah blah blah, just like that. Actually, a Steadicam which is there next to you allows you to maintain eye contact when you're solo shooting with your talent, and they have a confidence seeing you. You see them. There's no camera really in the way. It's just slightly off to the side. The moment you do that, it's a whole other experience. You're then talking to a large hunk of metal with some rods and some wires, and and so there are reasons to use Steadicam. But then the flip side of that is if I want to travel light and I want to get a motion stabilized shot, something that looks like $1 million that actually I just did in 5 minutes, then I would suggest that some of the newer gimbals are better at that because you can just stick them in a suitcase and run.
I think not to get too philosophical, but I think what gimbal systems do is it allows people to get really dynamic shots. So any, normal people, or person that wants to get into it, gives them the ability to get stabilized shots. So it in a way it's commercialization as well. I mean, to some degree, about being able to buy something. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that it allows people, empowers people.
No, but there are shots that you can.
Yeah.
There are certainly shots you can do with a gimbal that you can't do with a Steadicam.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And not only that, you can do them quickly.
Yeah.
Where there are some shots you can do with a Steadicam, but you would have had to plan them out over,
But also the
5 hours. And
the walking shot is, I think, easier to do with the Steadicam.
of course.
Yeah.
And that's 95% of the stabilized shots that I do are simple walking shots, and they are better on a Steadicam. In my most used Steadicam is the Merlin, the tiny one, which I know a lot of people have difficulty flying with, but I'm a trained Steadicam operator, and I actually have no problem at all moving the Merlin around, and I just wave it around like that. Even though I've got a bigger Steadicam, that's the one that I end up using a lot because it does what I need it to do. And the new one, the Solo. Yeah. It's $500. It's cheaper than a gimbal. If you know how to operate it, it's actually it's more cost effective for somebody walking along, or an awful lot of drama actually. What you can't do is go passing it through a window of a moving car, which is what you can do with Movi. So
the gimbals make sense for a lot of stuff where you have to pan a lot, where you just go up and down and stuff like that, or change height.
I prefer going up and down with a Steadicam.
Yeah.
As only if you actually physically have to sort of put things through something, under something, or that's when I kind of think gimbals really work well.
Yeah. Or shooting out of a car, which is vibrating.
Yeah, exactly. As a sort of helicopter car thing, stabilizing it can't be beat at the moment. Not for the money,
But it's brought production value to your productions, right, Nino? Because you've now adopted the use of gimbals.
Yeah, I've been working on this big project over the summer, which I mentioned before, the point of view thing, and for some of the shots we used the Movi, and it's funny that the M5 with the A7S, but upside down mode, which I actually prefer to the M10.
Because you have more of a connect.
Yeah, I have the camera right in front of me and have the arms down there, which is like, it's not as fatiguing as this one. You mentioned the thing with the talent having to look at the camera. That was exactly an issue because I was playing a point of view cameraman. Basically, I am the person who watches this is supposed to think that they are the camera, so to speak. So we had some child actors, and they had a hard time looking at the camera, just the black box. So we just painted a little bird on it and just look at the bird.
It's a lo-fi solution to a technological problem.
Yeah. There's something still for me personally. Again, like I said, I wouldn't sort of completely rule out the use of a gimbal system, and perhaps I will look at it at some point. But there's something very organic I like about Steadicam, and again, it goes back to the mechanical aspect of moving things around. And you spend years perfecting your craft as well. And like I said, it's a constant, perpetual learning curve for me to actually refine my craft as a Steadicam operator.
All right, and some of the newer technologies are actually coming to Steadicam. People think Steadicam's like completely fixed now. It's like I spoke IBC. There's a new Steadicam box, which is essentially a movable weight that sits on the very bottom of a Steadicam sled, and basically compensates for that slightly wobbly upright motion. Some novice or not particularly experienced operators.
That was when dynamic balance is not set properly.
No.
That's why it's popping like that.
No,
oh, okay.
No, nothing to do with mate. This is for $30,000 Steadicam rigs from operators who have been doing it for 25 years.
Okay.
So it's sometimes there are slight bobbling motions that just can't be helped. The idea is that the weight at the bottom is mechanically shifted because a sensor is measuring just how off from the horizontal you are, and it compensates by moving the weight at the bottom of the Steadicam.
Right.
But it has a tactile response that it only does it so much, and it's really hard to explain. But basically, it doesn't feel mechanical when you're adjusting it on the Steadicam arm, even though it has got a whole bunch of electronics and everything else going on. But it's a Steadicam product. It's not a third party.
We'll just show some footage of it.
You should show some footage. I don't think it exists actually.
Really? Okay.
No, I think all they had to show was a black box, and you could feel the weight moving around.
Yeah.
But I think that that stuff it's all coming.
Speaking of stabilization, why do people still use gyros anymore?
Yeah,
they still do gyros.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, look at that OK Go video. It's all done with a Manfrotto fig rig, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's probably had more views than anything else in the past several months.
Well, the gyro is basically the analog version of a gimbal, right?
A gimbal, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap it up there. Thanks, guys, for coming. It was fun. And thanks to all our sponsors, G Technology, Movidium.com, Rode Microphones, Film Convert, and FNV. And tune in for the next show of On the Couch. Thanks.